yield back to the chairman.
Thank you, Senator Cotton. I believe Senator Blackburn is next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and congratulations to each of you on being here today. Ms. Lee, I want to return to the question that Senator Tillis started with you on your 2013 comments to the Criminal Defense Lawyer CLE program.
Yes.
About avoiding cop talk. In the piece that I read on this, you said it was to avoid that because, and I'm quoting, this may refresh your memory, you made the mention that you had used this to most favorably describe an outcome that you were seeking. But in what I read, you said, and I'm quoting you, it legitimizes the behavior of the police, end quote. So what did you mean by that?
Thank you, Senator. I don't know if the portion of the document that you're reading, I'm not, without hearing what preceded it and what comes after it, it's difficult for me to respond specifically on that. I believe, though, that what I was, the point that I was trying to make with that was the idea of, by, again, parroting exactly how the witnesses or a police officer in a trial transcript described what occurred, by presenting it that way in your brief, you are accepting, well, this is what happened. This is the version of events that should be accepted, the judge on appeal should accept. And so as an advocate, we don't want to just present the facts in the way that supports what the witnesses are claiming. And so I believe that's what I was getting at with that description.
Would you review that and then submit an answer in writing for us? I think that would be helpful, especially as we look at the environment. Law enforcement is one of the main concerns. When I talk to Tennesseans, safe communities, safe streets, then to hear that you, as recently as 2013, would have said avoid cop talk, and then state that it legitimizes the behavior of the police. I think you can understand why this would give us pause and why we would seek further clarification from you. So I would ask that you submit something in writing, that you review that and clarify it. Okay, Ms. Rossman, let me come to you. I like to know where someone stands with the Constitution and the rule of law. No one wants to see activist judges on the bench. They want them to abide by the rule of law. So same type question that Senator Kennedy got into it with Ms. Lee over, how do you believe the Constitution would be interpreted? Are you a textualist? What do you believe?
Thank you for that question, Senator. I don't have a specific judicial philosophy, and I think in part that's...
Well, I'm going to stop you right there because I find it astounding that neither of you have a judicial philosophy as to how you feel about the Constitution. Mr. Chairman, I think this is something that should cause all of us a little bit of concern. And let me return to the cases on the compassionate release. I read through some of this in your background. And the Wilson case, and then also specifically the Moon case that Senator Hawley was referring to. You know, if you think compassionate release should be used, in the Wilson case, you argued that that Mr. Wilson being a felon in possession of a gun is a nonviolent gun possession offense, and that he should be released because of that and given compassionate release. And then you turn around with the Moon case, and there are several felonies and the threats, but you have not been able to explain where you think the court finds its balance. Each of these are violent offenders with felony records, but yet in your mind, you thought they deserved that release because of a health issue and without consideration of danger to the public and public safety. So it is very difficult to understand how you would approach that balance, and that is something that we would be well served if you could explain to us in writing how should the courts balance compel early release cases. Where would you find that? And I know I'm out of time, and I will yield back. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Senator Blackburn. I thank the nominees for appearing before the committee. And please be mindful, as was noted, that some senators may submit written questions. We'd ask you to work diligently to respond to those. Thank you very much. And as they would say in court, you're excused. At this point, we're going to move to our second panel. I'd ask for everyone's patience for a few moments while we finalize.
Time I have left to a couple of other things. Are you familiar with the name Robin Pachero?
I am not.
Okay, Pascal Gaspar Andres,
I am
or
not.
Gaspar Andres, or Juan Carlos Morales Pedraza. These are just a few of the criminal illegal immigrants who have been charged with a convicted crime against American citizens since Joe Biden took office. This has happened on your watch. Pachero was charged with a hit and run. It left a father of two dead. The Andres were charged with stabbing a man to death. Juan Carlos Morales Pedraza he pled guilty to coercing a minor to engage in sex. So this administration's radical immigration policies are endangering Americans and costing some of them their lives. Does the Biden administration have any plans to issue million-dollar payments to the families of those who were killed or assaulted by illegal aliens?
Senator, in 2020, there were individuals who crossed illegally into the United States.
These are all on your watch.
And committed crimes.
These are all on your watch.
Is it your position that the prior administration bears responsibility for that?
I'm asking the questions, and these are all on your watch. The Build Back Better plan supports giving green cards to illegal aliens. There are many advocates out there that are trying to make certain that gets shoved into the Build Back Better. I call it the Build Back Broke. Do you support giving green cards to illegal immigrants that have entered this country? Yes or no?
Senator, I believe in immigration reform and legislation that provides a path to citizenship to those who meet certain criteria.
So you would support illegal immigrants having a path to citizenship and getting a green card when we have Americans that are out of work. Let me ask you this, yes or no, have you ever visited the White House?
Have I visited the White House?
Yes. Have you ever visited the White House?
Yes.
So you're aware there is a fence around the entire perimeter of the White House to prevent unauthorized individuals from entering the White House, correct?
Yes.
And U.S. taxpayers are also funding a $500,000 fence around President Biden's Rehoboth Beach house, correct?
I'm not aware.
And your department is overseeing this construction. You should be aware of that. President Biden obviously likes walls when they protect him. So can you explain to me why a wall is effective and necessary at the White House and the Biden Beach House, but is not necessary at the southern border?
Yes, I can. May I have that opportunity?
It's up to the chairman. My time has expired.
You may complete the answer to the question.
There are thousands of miles along the southern border, and I agree with what then Senator McCain presented, which was there are different solutions for the border because of its tremendous expanse, the great diversity in the terrain that it must cover, and therefore the key to border security is fundamentally advanced technology. That is the most effective means because we're not going to construct a border wall on the ragged and jagged cliffs in certain parts of the border. And if I may, respectfully, Mr. Chairman, because I did not have a chance to answer any of the other questions, let me just respectfully submit that I disagree with almost everything that was articulated in the questions posed to me that I did not have a chance to respond to.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Senator Padilla.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Number of questions. Mr. Secretary, thank you for being here. But first,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. General Garland, thank you for being with us today. I have to tell you that it is with much disappointment that I have watched the DOJ be so politicized. And the way things have been carried out, when you look at the memo to parents, you've heard a lot about that today, and it's because we're hearing a lot about that. And I just have to ask you, knowing that you really helped bring to justice those that caused the Oklahoma City bombing, would you really honestly put parents in the same category as a Terry Nichols or a Timothy McVeigh?
My God, absolutely not.
Then why would you ever release a memo? I mean, did you write that memo? Did staff write that memo? What would have led you to do this? It is so over the top.
Senator, there's nothing in the memo that in any way draws any comparison, anything like that. This memo is about violence and threats of violence. It's not
Sir, I have to tell you that that may be your opinion. And you know, many times perception is reality. And reading that memo myself, Tennesseans reading that memo, what they found in that memo, what they heard you say was if you show up and you question these school boards, you will be deemed a domestic terrorist. You could be investigated by the FBI. I mean, the FBI has a lot of other things that they should be focusing on. And the FBI should be there looking at issues like China. Now, the Knoxville FBI has been very concerned about China. So give me a little update. What's the status of the China initiative at DOJ?
So, Senator, we regard People's Republic of China as an extraordinarily serious and aggressive threat to our intellectual property, to our universities.
Okay, you're stonewalling me on that. We all know they're an aggressive threat.
We continue to investigate
Okay.
the PRC efforts to.
Do you see them as an adversary?
I see them as adversarial with respect to our ransomware, with respect to hacking
Okay.
with respect to counterintelligence, with respect to counter-espionage,
Well,
in
we
all
know
those
that
ways.
over the last several months, the last 9 months, several espionage prosecutions of researchers have been dropped or charges have been dismissed, including those of a UT professor at UT Knoxville. And of course, the Huawei case is there. So this is in spite of the fact that Director Wray recently testified that the FBI opens a new Chinese espionage investigation every 12 hours. So are there apparent failures of the initiative? Is it a lack of leadership, or is it a compromise position with the administration? Is it incompetence?
Every case is evaluated on its own with respect to the law and the facts. We continue to open cases involving the People's Republic of China daily, as the director said. We will not in any way let up our concerns about Chinese.
All right, I want to move on. I'm glad to know you're not going to go soft on China because this administration is going soft on China. On your directive, going back to the School Board Association and the directive that you sent out, the NSBA has apologized. Are you planning to apologize to the parents of this country? Moms and dads?
There is nothing in this memorandum that any parent should be concerned about.
There's a lot that parents should be concerned about it. Let me ask you about the Durham investigation because 44 senators joined me in a letter that we sent to you in August, and we still have not received a written response from you on the status of the Durham investigation. So will you provide for me a written status report of the Durham investigation?
So the particular aim, I think, of the letter asked about the budget. And as I said at the House committee, Mr. Durham is continuing. And the only
We
way
asked
he
for a
could
status update.
well,
And we also ask that the report be made public, available to the public on the completion of his work. Will that be made public?
So on both of those questions, his budget has been approved, as I already announced. And with respect to the report, I would like as much as possible to be made public. I have to be concerned about Privacy Act concerns and classification. But other than that, the commitment is to provide a public report, yes.
Can you guarantee this committee that Special Counsel Durham has free rein to proceed wherever his investigation takes him without any political or otherwise undue influence or interference?
There'll be no political or otherwise undue interference.
Okay,
with
Susan
Durham's
Hennessy.
investigation.
Susan Hennessy was recently hired to work in your National Security Division. This is a troubling hire because of her political bias. She has made several comments that show she is incapable of working impartially on sensitive matters within the National Security Division, particularly on the Durham investigation. For example, December 1st, 2020, Ms. Hennessy stated, and I am quoting, "Durham has made abundantly clear that in a year and a half, he hasn't come up with anything. I guess this kind of partisan silliness has become characteristic of Barr's legacy, but unclear to me why Durham would want to go along with it," end quote. So how can the American people be certain that she is going to be fair and impartial when she is on the record making those statements? So has she retracted that statement? Do you intend to ask her to retract that statement?
I have to confess, I don't think I've even ever met Ms. Hennessy, and she has nothing whatsoever to do with
Well,
the
you may
Durham
want to look at
investigation.
her. She is there in your National Security Division, and she is very much opposed to this. I want to thank you for your time. I am going to send a couple of questions to you for more complete answers, but I associate myself with the comments by my colleagues that the border issues have turned every town into a border town and every state into a border state. The amount of drugs, the amount of trafficking that is flowing in here, talking to local law enforcement, the way they're looking at the cartels. Mr. Attorney General, there is a lot that needs to be done to secure this country, and the parents of the kiddos in our school, they are not the problem. There are other problems that need your attention.
Thank you, Senator Blackburn. The committee will stand in recess for 5 minutes.
I'm going to submit to you a question on the expulsion of Haitian nationals for the record, and just appreciate your time. Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you, Senator Booker. Senator Blackburn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Secretary, thank you for being here with us. I have to tell you, and I know you've heard it from others, so many Tennesseans that I talk to are absolutely outraged with the benefits and the handouts that are given to illegal immigrants, especially at a time when so many people are really suffering due to this oppressive inflation that we are seeing take hold of our economy. And we are finding ourselves in the midst of the worst border crisis ever. Now, my colleague talked about 2019, but also the number dropped in 2020 after the implementation of Remain in Mexico and the Title 42 positions. That dropped. And now, under this administration, we are at an all-time high. You are setting records. And now you're talking about giving immigrants, these illegal immigrants, $1 billion in settlement money. $1 billion is a lot of money. That's a lot of taxpayer money. So I'd like you to help me put these payments into perspective of that $1 billion. So how much of a border wall? If you want to talk about getting to root causes, build a wall. This is what our Border Patrol has been saying for 3 decades that they need. It's not Trump's wall, it's the fact that the Border Patrol wanted that. So how many miles of border wall would $1 billion build?
If I may, Senator, take a
No.
moment, because you've asked two very different
Yes, I
questions.
have. I want an answer to how many miles of border wall could you build with $1 billion? Obviously, you don't know the answer to that. The answer is 50 miles of border wall. And then how many Border Patrol agents could you hire with $1 billion? Something else the Border Patrol has said they need to secure this border.
Senator, may I speak to the number of questions that you have posed?
Let's go through these and then come back to that. How many border agents could you hire?
I would have
with
to
$1
get
billion?
back to you, but
I can tell you it's over 15,000 border agents. How many immigration judges? Another thing the Border Patrol has told us that they need at that southern border. How many immigration judges could you hire with $1 billion?
I would respectfully submit that you
7,213 immigration judges could be hired. These are all things the Border Patrol has said that they need. Now, Grassley asked you you responded to him on these settlements because the families are separated at the border. So can you sit here today and tell this committee that there hasn't been a single family separated since your administration? You told Senator Grassley you all ended that policy day one.
that is correct. We are not.
But
we
you
are
care,
not-
you separated families, I know as late as March. That has been reported. So all these families that have been separated under the Biden administration, are you going to make a payment to them?
Oh, Senator.
Are they eligible?
Senator, your question, forgive me, your question is filled with inaccuracies.
Oh, no, these are things that we are pulling from.
No, Senator,
Border
you're-
Patrol, oh, yes.
you're-
Okay, I'm going to move on. Are you compensating people for both short and long-term separations, days or weeks? Are you making any difference in that, or is it just a blanket payment?
Senator, the Department of Justice is representing the United States of America in federal tort
Under
claims.
what legal authority do you all have to make these payments?
Senator, if you were privy to my prior testimony, and please allow me to answer at least one of the multiple questions that you have posed.
Okay, I want
Just
to
one.
move on in the time I have left to a couple of other things. Are you familiar with the name Robin Pichero?
I am not.
Okay, Pascal Gaspar Andres,
I am
or
not.
Gaspar Andres, or Juan Carlos Morales Pedraza. These are just a few of the criminal illegal immigrants who have been charged with a convicted crime against American citizens since Joe Biden took office. This has happened on your watch. Pichero was charged with a hit and run. It left a father of 2 dead. The Andres were charged with stabbing a man to death. Juan Carlos Morales Pedraza he pled guilty to coercing a minor to engage in sex. So this administration's radical immigration policies are endangering Americans and costing some of them their lives. Does the Biden administration have any plans to issue million-dollar payments to the families of those who were killed or assaulted by illegal aliens?
Senator, in 2020, there were individuals who crossed illegally into the United States.
These are all
and
on your
committed-
watch.
And committed crimes.
These are all on your watch.
Is it Is it your position that the prior administration bears responsibility for that?
I'm asking the questions, and these are all on your watch. The Build Back Better plan supports giving green cards to illegal aliens. There are many advocates out there that are trying to make certain that gets shoved into the Build Back Better. I call it the Build Back Broke. Do you support giving green cards to illegal immigrants that have entered this country? Yes or no?
Senator, I believe in immigration reform and legislation that provides a path to citizenship to those who meet certain criteria.
So you would support illegal immigrants having a path to citizenship and getting a green card when we have Americans that are out of work. Let me ask you this, yes or no, have you ever visited the White House?
Have I visited the White House?
Yes. Have you ever visited the White House?
Yes.
So you're aware there is a fence around the entire perimeter of the White House to prevent unauthorized individuals from entering the White House, correct?
Yes.
And U.S. taxpayers are also funding a $500,000 fence around President Biden's Rehoboth Beach house, correct?
I'm not aware.
And your department is overseeing this construction. You should be aware of that. President Biden obviously likes walls when they protect him. So can you explain to me why a wall is effective and necessary at the White House and the Biden Beach House, but is not necessary at the southern border?
Yes, I can. May I have that opportunity?
It's up to the chairman. My time has expired.
You may complete the answer to the question.
There are thousands of miles along the southern border, and I agree with what then Senator McCain presented, which was there are different solutions for the border because of its tremendous expanse, the great diversity in the terrain that it must cover, and therefore the key to border security is fundamentally advanced technology. That is the most effective means, because we're not going to construct a border wall on the ragged and jagged cliffs in certain parts of the border. And if I may, respectfully, Mr. Chairman, because I did not have a chance to answer any of the other questions, let me just respectfully submit that I disagree with almost everything that was articulated in the questions posed to me that I did not have a chance to respond to.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Senator Padilla.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Number of questions. Mr. Secretary, thank you for being here. But first, I want to...
Senator Blackburn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Clark, you're in charge of policing the Civil Rights Division at the federal level. Does it raise civil rights concerns when the government attempts to intimidate citizens who are exercising their First Amendment freedom of speech?
Thank you, Senator. We do not want intimidation in our society.
So it would concern you if there was an exercise against an individual's free speech, correct?
The First Amendment is important, and we also do not want a society with intimidation.
Did President Biden promise to keep the DOJ apolitical?
He has, and Attorney General Garland has made clear his commitment to ensuring that partisanship will not impact our enforcement work.
Okay. Yes or no? Did the teachers union write a letter to DOJ asking you to use the Patriot Act to target concerned parents who voice their opposition to the indoctrination of their children? Yes or no?
This is not a matter that the Civil Rights Division handled. I'm aware of the memorandum issued by the Attorney General, which speaks to threats and intimidation that some school officials have experienced in our country, and that's not activity protected by the First Amendment.
So you're saying a parent going to a school board and expressing their dismay with CRT or with a mask mandate is not protected speech. Is that what you're saying?
I believe the Attorney General's memorandum deals with threats and intimidation and harassment.
Let me ask you this then. Did DOJ issue the directive to the FBI to target parents in direct response to this letter from the teachers union, yes or no?
Again, this is not a matter that the division handled, but what I can tell you is that the Attorney General said that, quote, "threats against public servants are not only illegal, they run counter to our nation's core values."
Do you believe it's appropriate to treat parents as domestic terrorists for daring to ask elected school board members questions about what is being taught to their children?
Senator, while this is not a matter that the Civil Rights Division handled, this is a memorandum issued by the Attorney General. I know that the department is committed to ensuring robust civil discourse.
Do you see any difference in somebody being a concerned parent and going to a school board meeting and asking questions, and then that individual being labeled a domestic terrorist and this being carried out by the FBI and the DOJ? Is that not a problem or a concern to you?
The Attorney General's memorandum is focused on threats, on intimidation.
So do you see parents as a
harassment.
threat?
I
Do you see
don't,
parents
Senator.
asking questions as a threat? Does DOJ see parents asking questions as a threat? Because we've seen reports from teachers, parents, and other members of a private Facebook group in Loudoun County, Virginia, that have been accused of compiling a list of names of district parents who oppose critical race theory in order to track, hack, and dox them, or even intimidate them into self-censorship. Should these teachers and other members of this private Facebook group be pursued by the FBI as domestic terrorists as well?
Senator, free speech is a hallmark value.
So it's free speech for teachers that want to track parents, but it's not free speech for parents that want to show up at a school board meeting and make their displeasure known and engage in public discourse, because those parents, taxpayers, are paying the bill for that. Let me ask you this. Attorney General Garland, I've seen reports of his family connection to Panorama Education over data harvesting and holding data on students and having contracts with school boards. And we've had quite a bit of discussion about Facebook and the way they market and data mine children as young as 8 years old. Are you aware of that?
This is not an issue that the Civil Rights Division works
so
on, but I'm
you all
generally
work
aware.
in stovepipes, is what you're telling me, and that you have no knowledge or information about what is being done to parents and how they are being labeled, and this directive for the FBI to go and investigate parents who are standing up for what their children are being subjected to in some public school systems. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Blackburn. I